Zille, good morning and Happy New Year.
Good morning, Siki. It's good to be with you for the first time in 2011.
Absolutely. I know. I've been asking everybody, when do we stop saying Happy New Year? But I suppose
at the end of January. So today is the last day. You're allowed to say compliments of the season until January's over, and then we're well into the new year.
Fantastic. Now, you were here in Alexandra this past weekend. Does that signal the kickoff of your campaign?
Well, I go to different parts of South Africa very regularly, certainly between elections. So it's not a new thing. It's not an unusual thing. I'm all over South Africa all of the time.
What is your message to South African voters as we gear up for those elections?
My message to the voters has always been, you have the power. You can decide your future in a democracy. And I think that is a realization that has to get into the hearts and minds of every voter in South Africa. I'm always surprised when I go anywhere in South Africa. People say to me, Mrs. Zille, won't you come here and fix this problem? In Mpumalanga, where I was after I was in Alexandra, there are terrible road conditions with huge potholes all over. You can't travel on those roads at night because you would be taking your life into your hands. And people say to me, won't you come here and help fix the potholes? And I say to them, I can't come here and fix the potholes. People didn't vote me into office here to do something about the potholes, but you have the power to vote into government a party that won't waste or steal your money, but that in fact will use it for the mandate that local government is meant to fulfill, one of which is fixing the roads.
Well, right now you obviously govern the Western Cape, and last week we spoke to ANC Youth League leader Julius Malema, who basically said, they're determined that the ANC is going to take back the Western Cape, and he specifically mentioned the metro in Cape Town and said that he and his supporters are going to camp in the city. Well, what do you say to that?
Well, I'm sure Julius Malema wants to camp in Cape Town because it's a lovely place to camp. Things work, he'll get the services and all of those sorts of things, and if he camps in a proper camping ground, he's very welcome to camp for as long as he likes and as long as he abides by the rules. The bottom line is this: the people decide, not Julius Malema, and he doesn't seem to quite understand that about a democracy. The people in the Western Cape understood their power. They felt the effects of long-term ANC governance. They didn't like it, and they replaced the ANC with another party. It is their right and it is their choice. And Julius Malema is very free to exercise his rights to movement around South Africa, but not free to impose a government on people who have a free choice themselves.
Let's talk a bit about the Twilight Saga, which has quietened down, but it seems it still lingers in the air. What do you say to people who raise that and say that is proof that the DA doesn't care about poor people?
Well, in fact, the DA cares passionately about poor people, and every single survey by an independent institution shows that we care far more about poor people than any other party. The National Government Index, the National Government Service Delivery Index done by the Department of Cooperative Government and Traditional Affairs, found that where the DA governs, there are far more services delivered to far more people. And recently, the Institute of Race Relations showed that far more of those services are delivered free where the DA governs. So poor people get more free services where the DA governs. That's the bottom line. The incident of Makaza specifically involved approximately 50 toilets out of almost 2,000 in a specific project in one community that was being upgraded. Every one of the informal settlements that don't have services that the DA government is trying to upgrade are involved in participation in those processes, in empowerment in those processes, and every single project differs. The national norm for the upgrading of unserviced settlements specifies that there should be one toilet for every 5 families. In that specific project, the people rejected that norm, and in consultation with the officials, decided on a different approach. 96% of people followed that approach and in fact enclosed their own toilets. A small number didn't at the end. The gap was taken again by the ANC Youth League, by a gentleman called Andile Lili, who's the Julius Malema of the Western Cape, and they made a huge issue out of it in one particular place, in one particular set of circumstances, and tried to play to the stereotype and the lie that the DA does not care about poor people. We care passionately, and there are very, very few places in South Africa where the local government has worked so hard to get a proper flush toilet to every single family living in a shack.
And where do things stand there right now?
Well, things stand there right now in that the minute the particular group of people, it was around 50 people, didn't enclose their toilets, the City Council moved in immediately to try and enclose those toilets. The ANC Youth League broke down those enclosures again and again and again on 3 occasions. Of course, the ANC Youth League wants to have open toilets because then they can use the political lie that suits them. And in fact, they are the people who are determined to keep open toilets.
We'll take your calls on 0891 104 207, 0891 104 207, SMSs to 34701. Your party has also come under fire for spending more than 600 million rand on consultants in 1 year. Why was that expenditure necessary?
Well, Siki, that is completely misleading and it's completely wrong. The 660 million rand was spent on service providers, contractors, and all the people that are required to deliver the services the provincial governments have to deliver. Let's take a large amount of that. At least 400 million came from health. That is the forensic services. You can't run a proper health system if you don't have forensic services. But the staff at head office in the Department of Health can't sit and do forensic tests. It's not their job, so it's contracted out. They're called consultants in the computer system, but they are service providers. Most of the services, for example, when you're building a new hospital, and they're building 2 new hospitals, one in Khayelitsha and one in Mitchell's Plain, architects have to plan those hospitals. Structural engineers have to design those hospitals. And a range of services are required that you don't keep in-house, but you contract out. And so every one of the services that are contracted out, including engineers, including construction companies, all go under consultants on the computer system. But they are for hard delivery of actual services on the ground. It's not the touchy-feely type business consultant that people may think. It is hard service delivery where people need it.
And the charges that you've criticized the ANC in the past for using consultants and paying them exorbitant fees, how is this different?
Well, it's fundamentally different because we were talking about a different set of consultants. When you're talking about communication consultants that you spend over 100 million rand on, then you're allowed to ask some questions. This is not hard service delivery like building hospitals or providing forensic services or providing specialist medical services. They're very different things.
Let's touch on your cooperation with the ID. How is that relationship going?
It's going extremely well, Siki. It's working extraordinarily in terms of us getting our structures together, our systems together, our vision aligned, and building a single, strong, principled alternative to the ANC.
So you are going to be contesting these elections under one banner?
Yes,
from
absolutely.
what I understand. All right. We'll take your calls, 0891 104 207, 0891 104 207, SMSs to 34701. Peter in Grahamstown, morning.
Good morning. What a privilege to be the first caller.
Welcome.
Ms. Zille, how would you like us to address you?
I'm Helen. Everyone calls me Helen.
Okay, Helen. Now look, you know that Malema actually was on the radio last week and I was not able to address him. Now, he claimed that he was going to behave, as he put it, as an opposition in Cape Town. Now, you may or may not be aware of what happened in Grahamstown when he came to town. I've got an article in front of me in the oldest newspaper in South Africa. It's Greycott's Mail. And I want to make sure, if you haven't read it, that you get a copy of it. It's titled Mourning the Death of Democracy in the ANC, and it's done by a very brave little journalist by the name of Kwanele Butana, who is actually prepared to speak on this radio. Because Malema won the election in Grahamstown, and according to this article, he used very undemocratic means. And I would like to engage him on radio on the way this election was won in Grahamstown. And also I'd like you to tell us about all the undemocratic methods that the ANC has tried over the years to try and unseat you in the Western Cape.